True Crime Society podcast contains adult themes and violence and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. And if you'd like to skip the intro or move to any specific part of the podcast, please refer to the timestamps listed in the episode description. Thank you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the True Crime Society podcast with Stephanie and Olivia. It is, and Peep's here too. She's actually at my lap since I've gone back to recording at a desk finally. Peep likes to come and sit in my lap since I'm like in a chair, not on my couch. So she's here and I'm holding her away from trying to step on the laptop. Seems to be her favorite hobby, trying to get on the computer. Oh, and also biting the headphone wire. So she's here. She's helping. She's thrilled. So if you hear her, there's not a cat hiding in your car. It's just Peep sitting here.
Ready to go.
It is, ready to go always. It's December 5th, 2024 right now. I am in the middle of like a windstorm. So hopefully all goes well and we don't lose power or anything crazy. I did get snow here as like a brief weather update. Not a lot, just a little, but I was saying I wanted to talk about this quickly on the podcast because so many people love when Olivia talked about the echidnas and, I have Peep. And I talked about how, like when I first moved into the house, how I was like, I don't have any wildlife. I'm so sad. Now I have this gang of like vigilante turkeys. They were all babies. There's like 20 of them, some babies and some moms. They've now grown and they're much bigger. They're full size. And this morning I woke up and they had my house surrounded. Like they were in the front, they were in the back, they were in the side. I was like, how am I going to go outside? They're actually kind of scary when they're big and there's like, I don't know if they've grouped together with more turkeys or it just seems like there's more turkeys because they're bigger. But I'm like, to me, it looked like there was 30 of them all together around my house. So then I look out at the snow and they're going crazy in the snow. They're jumping. Their like wings are out. They're gobbling, whatever it is they do. I'm like, they want revenge for Thanksgiving. This is it. They're here to fight. Like, I was really wondering if they were attacking something by the way they were just jumping around and being crazy.
No, they were just having fun.
I don't know. I think so. I think they were just having fun in the snow, which then I'm like, oh, that's cute. Because like they weren't attacking anything. So then I had to go to work. So I went outside and they all scattered, thankfully. Because I'm like, I don't know. Are they mean? Are they going to like attack me? But they still seem like mostly the babies and the moms. There was one kind of big one, but they all dispersed when I went outside. And one was like, I didn't know that they fly, like for real fly. I don't know how far they can fly, but one flew much higher than I thought a turkey could fly. So that's my yard update. That's what I have to offer today.
We've had these animals around. I don't know if you guys have them. They're called plovers. Do you have those birds?
No.
I don't know if you have. You might call them something differently, but basically they're not the prettiest. Plover. They're not the prettiest looking birds, but like they're around, but they're quite territorial, especially when they have babies. So if you're walking, for example, and you come across some with a nest or with babies, they will like run at you. But on our street with these two plovers have had 3 little babies, and they are when the birds are older, they're not very cute or very, pretty to look at. But the little babies are so cute. They're so fluffy. They're like little tiny.
I see the babies.
The babies are so cute. So we've had 3 on our street every day we look for them. And when I say they're aggressive, like if you walk on the other side of the street, they'll leave you alone. If you walk near them, they'll probably run at you. But like if you walk on the other side of the street, they're fine. So every day we've been looking, and the babies have been getting so big. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I only see 2. I hope the other one's all right. But apparently the kids saw 3 the other day, so they should all be fine. But they're growing so quickly. They've gotten huge, like in the matter of weeks. It's crazy. But they were so sweet when we saw them. They're just these tiny little chicks running around. So sweet.
They look kind of like I've never heard of plovers before.
Plover, yeah.
But plover?
Yeah,
but they look kind of like a sandpiper.
Okay, maybe it.
Do you have those? The little ones like at the beach that they like go up to the waves and they peck, and then when the wave comes in, they run away.
It says,
I just looked up what the difference is. The main difference is their size.
It says plovers are found throughout North America. There's 7 different ones. So maybe it's just like a similar type of bird.
Yeah, I don't see them in New York. Well, I mean, I don't go to the beach much in New York, but when I go to North Carolina, I see the sandpiper type a good amount. And I always think they're so cute. They like bop up and down. They run around from the waves.
We mainly just get seagulls and pigeons. Not even so much pigeons, but mainly just seagulls on the beach.
We get seagulls in like the Walmart parking lot or in the Burger King parking lot because there's no seas or beaches around where I live. So they just live in parking lots. And I'm like, what are you guys doing here? They're just looking for a French fry.
That's all they want.
Yeah. I don't know like why they're here. I'm like, you guys, it's cold, it's snowy, it's miserable. Like you could be somewhere else. But they choose to stay in the Walmart parking lot.
Someone did send a message. I can't remember if it was on Instagram or Patreon, and they did ask, do we have turkeys in Australia? So I think I've spoken before about bush. I know like some people here call them bush turkeys and other people call them brush turkeys. So like they look different to the turkeys that I've seen you guys have. But these are like basically ones that live in the wild. They're black. So they're different to some. Like I feel like they're absolutely not the turkey that you would eat. But it's we do have wild turkeys here, I guess.
Yeah, like mine, I'm pretty sure are the kind you would eat because they're getting pretty big, and I'm like, I hope no one comes and gets them.
Don't worry, they're safe for another year now.
Yeah, for now. All right, so that's all the wildlife, weather, life updates that we have today for you. We'll get into the topics for the day. I guess this is kind of like another it's always the husband type episode. And I guess at this point, well, I guess we still have to say allegedly. They've both been arrested for the murder of their wives, so.
Yeah, it's not like Barry Morphew, who was out and is still out free forever. But yeah, both of these men have been arrested, so it seems fairly likely.
Yeah. So one we're going to talk about is Suzanne Simpson, which a lot of people have been following online because it did seem like it was definitely her husband from day one that this came to light. She is actually still technically missing, but presumed dead. And the second one we're going to talk about is Christa Gilley, who was actually pregnant when she was murdered. Her husband decided that he wanted her, a successful physical therapist, to be a trad wife, stay at home, didn't think women should work.
So before we finish up with the episode, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, Sonobello. The most known secret with celebrities and influencers is that so many of them have had lipo. Whether it's a small touch-up or a total makeover, lipo has changed, and Sonobello has been at the forefront with using LAL technology and getting these beautiful and natural outcomes for each person. Our friends at Sonobello are offering you their best deal. You're now included in the Friends and Family Holiday Savings event. You'll get the same price that Sonobello family and friends pay, but appointments are limited, so please get on this.
Sonobello doctors are masters in micro laser fat removal, a brilliant technique that removes stubborn fat permanently. And you can get it done in one visit. So save big during Sonobello's Friends and Family Holiday Savings event. Schedule your free consultation now at sonobello.com/TCS. That's sonobello.com/TCS. So we'll get into those two, obviously both enraging stories. We're going to start off with Suzanne Simpson.
I want to get to some breaking news we've been following for the last half hour or so. Numerous sources confirming to KSAT that investigators in the Suzanne Simpson murder case have told the Simpson family that DNA belonging to Suzanne was found on a saw.
That saw belonging to her husband, Brad Simpson, who is in jail, now charged with Suzanne's murder. Investigators are still searching for Suzanne nearly 2 months after she was last seen in early October. Meanwhile, Brad Simpson is scheduled to appear in court Monday on charges of murder in Suzanne's death.
I had a source tell me that Olmos Park police called the family today and told them that they are still searching for Suzanne's body, but that her DNA, in fact, was found on that saw, a reciprocating saw that it's alleged Brad Simpson tried to hide from investigators.
So she was 51 years old, and she has been missing from Texas since October 6th, 2024. Her husband, Brad, has been charged with her murder, even though she remains missing, like we said. So Suzanne was born on June 16th, 1973 in Bexar County. That's hopefully how you say it. I know people message us being like, you don't say it how it's spelled. It's spelled Bexar.
Yeah, it's so funny because I feel like that is one we've had the most comments about. Like, even people will be like, if you do an episode on this, this is how you say it. So we did look up how to pronounce it. I think we've got it right, hopefully.
Yeah. So she was born to Philip and Barbara Clark. Her parents got divorced in 1987 after 17 years of marriage. Suzanne worked as a real estate agent at Nick's Realty Company in Olmos Park. They described her disappearance as devastating on the company's website. They put out a statement on there, and it says, Suzanne Simpson is a beloved mother, sister, friend, and professional realtor. Her Nick's Realty family is devastated by her disappearance and the reports of physical violence towards her. Along with so many others who love Suzanne, we will continue to pray for her. According to her LinkedIn, she graduated from Texas Military Institute and then attended the University of Texas, where she received a Bachelor's of Science degree in communications. So at the time of her disappearance, Suzanne and Brad had been married for 22 years, and their children were, and still are, I guess, 20 years old, 18, 15, and 5 years old. So 4 children. On Sunday, October 6th at 6 p.m., Suzanne and Brad went to a party at the Argyle, which is a private dinner club in Alamo Heights. According to the affidavit, they got into a verbal disagreement there. So this is what I meant to ask for. Were the kids also there? Like a kid came and picked her up? Or we don't know.
So I know that she was there with, I think, at least the 5-year-old. I don't know if one of the older kids picked her up or whatever, but yeah. So when I said Susan and one of her children left, I'm pretty sure that the younger child was with her. I think that's like, it's very, like, I haven't really seen it confirmed anywhere, but from what I've gathered, it was the younger child who was there with her that night.
At 8:30 p.m., Suzanne and one of her children left the Argyle and went to a supermarket where they were seen on CCTV between 8:40 and 8:51 p.m., and they arrived home shortly after that. Later, Brad would claim that Suzanne lost her phone at the store, which doesn't seem to be true, but that is what he says. So at 9:15 p.m., Suzanne called a friend, and then 1 minute later, she called her mother. And the two talked for 8 minutes, and Suzanne told her mother that Brad had assaulted her and that her arm, back, and neck hurt as a result. So I'm assuming she called them on her cell phone, but she obviously didn't leave at the store.
Yeah. It's like there's a lot of conflicting information in this. There's a lot of, like, if you look up different timelines, there's a lot of kind of convoluted information, not a lot of confirmed. So we've kind of tried to gather what we can from these bunch of different sources.
Even though Brad told investigators that Suzanne left her phone at the store, it was actually discovered that her cell phone was suspended at the request of the subscriber at 9:16 p.m., which still is kind of contradictory because she was on the phone talking to her mother at that time, allegedly. So I'm wondering if maybe Brad heard her talking on the phone with her mom and saying how she was assaulted. Maybe he got mad and then called up Verizon or whatever and was like, I want to disconnect this line.
Yeah, it's so weird to me. Like, I feel like it's a bit of an ordeal to suspend your service. Like, it's not something that you can just go online.
Yeah.
And, it would take a while.
Yeah, I feel like doing anything with your phone plan is kind of a nightmare, but I don't know what they had, or maybe had a connection. I don't know. So at some point that night, don't exactly know when, but after that, Suzanne went to a friend's house. It's also unclear when she returned home, but she did. And a neighbor told police that he heard a loud argument between Suzanne and Brad between 10 and 11 p.m. He looked outside and saw that they were in a physical altercation and that it looked like Suzanne was trying to get away from Brad, who was like pushing her down. A short time later, the neighbor heard screams coming from a brushy area near his home. So according to the Find My Phone app, Suzanne's phone was last known to be at their home at 10:22 p.m. So that would kind of be on par with the 10 to 11 argument. And an hour after the argument, the neighbor said that he saw Brad leave the house in his GMC pickup for 1 to 2 hours before returning home. The neighbor didn't call police at that time, but he did end up recounting this information later to the police. Would I call police? Yeah, I feel like I would if I saw a guy like pushing her and yelling. I feel
There's
like
been
I
a lot
would.
of
But some people
discussion.
are just like, not my business.
Yeah, there's been a lot of kind of blame put on the neighbor, like he could have prevented this if he had have called police. But absolutely, I understand not wanting to get involved. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, would I call police if I saw someone arguing? You would never, ever in a million years think it was going to end in murder. You would just think they were fighting and they will sort it out. And also, like, it seems like they dispersed fairly quickly as well from the scene. So it's not like they were there for hours fighting. He probably thought by the time I call them, by the time the police get here, they're going to be gone anyway.
Yeah. Like, if they were just arguing and it didn't last that long or seemed that escalated, I probably wouldn't call. But if I saw him pushing her around, then I would. Or if it was screaming that went on for hours. And yeah, I feel like you can't really blame him. But I guess it's also a lesson of like, hey, if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
So at 12:30 a.m. on Monday, October 7th, Brad's truck was seen on CCTV, and the bed of the truck was empty except for a large ice chest. Brad told police that he saw Suzanne at 6:30 that morning when he was leaving to drop their youngest child off at school. The last activity on Suzanne's phone was at 7:15 that same morning at a business parking lot in Olmos Park, Texas, which seems like it probably wasn't her that had the phone, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I would think so.
And that's why I was also confused because I was like, so maybe just like the service of the phone got shut off, but it was still on and can still track things.
Yeah, I think so.
So at 7:53 a.m., Brad dropped their child off at school. There were at least 2 white trash bags in the bed of his truck, along with the ice chest at this point. So added in a few more things. At 9:12 a.m., Brad was seen at Whataburger in Bernie. Surveillance video showed 3 white trash bags, a heavy-duty trash can, the ice chest, and a large item that was wrapped in a blue tarp with a firewood rack on top of it, all in the back of his truck. So we're gathering more things. At 9:50 a.m., a little bit later, Brad was at Home Depot, where he purchased 2 bags of cement, a construction bucket with a lid, 32 trash bags, Clorox spray, and insect repellent because, you can't get bit by bugs while you're probably dumping a body.
Priorities.
Got to protect that skin. He also asked someone for directions to the nearest dump in Bernie. He left the store around 10 a.m. and put his phone in lockdown mode, whatever that means. I don't really know what that means. Airplane mode, maybe?
Yeah, I feel like, and I don't know.
That's what it's being reported as.
Yeah, if he doesn't have like an iPhone, I don't know, maybe he has some other type of phone, but I don't know. But yes, like he basically I would assume airplane mode.
Yeah. And later that day, his truck was seen leaving the dump in Bernie. At 11:15 a.m., Brad stopped at a gas station and bought water. The trash bags were no longer in the bed of the truck, but he still had the ice chest, the tarp, the firewood rack, and the trash can. He also changed his shoes from sandals to cowboy boots. After leaving the gas station, he turned his phone on and off continuously while driving, and he stayed in Medina for about 13 minutes before heading off east. And at 1:41 p.m., the truck was captured by a license plate reader entering Bernie again, and this time the blue tarp was no longer in the truck and the firewood rack had been moved. Brad received a call from the school at 3 p.m. because no one picked up their child, and this was something that Suzanne usually did. He got to the school at 3:27 p.m. to pick up their child, and at this point, the firewood rack was no longer in the back of the truck, but the trash can and the ice chest remained. At 4:07 p.m., Brad went to the car wash. At 4:07 p.m., Brad went to the car wash and cleaned the inside of his truck. There were dried cement splashes on the vehicle seen via CCTV, and only the ice chest was in the back of the truck at this time. This is what I mean by men are dumb.
What do you think was going to happen? Like driving around town with all, like basically her body probably in these things, and it's
like acquiring things, dumping things, going to Home Depot. Like,
Yeah.
By Monday night, Brad still hadn't reported Suzanne missing, and at 9:57 p.m., one of her friends actually called the police to do that. But then Brad, a couple minutes later at 10:11 p.m., also decided to then report Suzanne missing. So I don't know if the friend was like, just so you know, I reported her missing. And he was like, well, I better report her missing too.
I better do something.
Yeah. So he left a voicemail for the Almost Park police chief and said that he had not heard from his wife since 11 p.m. on October 6th, which is different than what he originally said. Because then there was like, oh, I saw her in the morning at 6 a.m.
Yep.
On October 8th, Brad texted a friend named James and said, if you're in Bandera, can you haul ass to meet me at your house? I don't have much time. And he sent a follow-up text saying, sorry for the urgency, but you're all I got, especially now. Social media is destroying me.
I just wonder what he thought was going to happen. Like, Suzanne seems like she was a very popular, well-loved member of the community. She had quite a, I don't want to say a high-profile role, but a role where people in the community knew who she was. So, of course, she's going to be missed fairly quickly. I don't know what he thought was going to happen.
He didn't think, obviously.
Yeah.
So, retired homicide detective named Phil Waters spoke to the media about the evidence in the case. He said, the timeline that they've built is what's important here. I read the affidavit. It's an amazing treasure trove of evidence, and it all points to him and nobody else. Him being Brad. On October 9th, Brad was arrested. As part of a statement by law enforcement, it says Simpson, 53, is being held at the Bexar County Jail on bonds totaling $2 million. He was arrested in Kendall County on Wednesday, October 9th, on charges of family violence and unlawful restraint. Brad was charged with Suzanne's murder on November 7th, 2024, and he's jailed on a total of $5 million in bonds on charges of murder, unlawful restraint, assault, tampering with evidence, and possession of a prohibited weapon. His bond hearing will be on December 19th. Suzanne and Brad's adult children, Chandler, who is 20, and Chelsea's 18, I think, right?
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
Made public statements. Chandler wrote on Instagram, my mom was a victim of abuse from my father. My father took my mother's life in a state of rage and control. She also vowed to speak out on behalf of her mother until she was found. She added, with every breath, I will make sure you remember her name. Chelsea made a heartfelt tribute to her missing mother on Instagram, stating, I will never forget all the sacrifices she made for us, although they went unnoticed in my early teen years. I know she did everything in her power to provide us with the most happy-go-lucky and enjoyable life possible, and she did just that and more. I miss her silly attitude and bubbly voice more and more every day. I would give up anything and everything to give her one last hug or call, or at the very least, a goodbye. That actually made me very, sad.
It's horrible.
It's interesting to me, though, how they're very much like, fuck our dad. I don't know if they saw the abuse and stuff, because there's other cases where the kids will stand by their dad, which I don't blame them, because they're traumatized, and what other choice do they have?
And
so
I also
always interesting to see how people
find
react.
it interesting, too, that Brad's brother has spoken out a lot about Brad and basically are like, we absolutely do not support him, and we...
So he must be just trash.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Seems like nobody but maybe James, his friend, likes him. So James is probably also trash. Speaking of James, the man that he texted on October 8th, James Cotter, he has also been charged with one count of tampering with evidence after police discovered an AK-47 inside the wall of his home. Police allege that James helped Brad hide a weapon that could be tied to Suzanne's disappearance, which is also why is he using an AK-47? Police and specially trained canines searched James's home, and they found the AK-47 inside a wall behind a mounted television. An orange string was allegedly attached to the gun, which allowed it to be pulled from the hiding place. Very, very creative.
Yeah, I was going to say, it just seems like there's so much work gone into hiding this gun. I don't know. It's ridiculous. But
it's like they would have been better off probably throwing it in a friggin' lake.
Yeah.
It's like they were like, well, we can't get rid of it. We still want to keep it.
Yeah. And the thing is too, like I feel like James was arrested a little while later, so he probably could have, I guess he didn't maybe want to get involved anymore, but he would have had more chance to put the gun somewhere else rather than behind the TV in the house.
Yeah. Like they have dogs that just sniff for ammunition and stuff, that they'll find it in the wall of your house.
So before we get into the episode, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, Skylight Frame. I don't know if you guys are the same as me, but I often struggle to find the perfect gift during the holidays. And sometimes I think I'm really organized and I'm almost done. And then I'll think, oh my gosh, I've left out a really important gift for someone in the family. And then sometimes I end up overthinking it and I wind up giving a gift that's kind of, not personalized, nothing that they really loved. So if you're like me, sometimes you struggle, we've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. You can upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use, which is great for all of us who are so busy in the holidays. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. You can add photos straight from your phone from anywhere. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a frame across the country, across the world even. I've sent them internationally. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop, and they'll feel so much more connected to you.
It also has a gift mode, which is really cool because you can personalize everything. You could preload it with memories without even opening the box, which is great. So then you can do most of the work for them, start it off with a bunch of pictures so they don't have to jump right into it themselves. And you could obviously have some nice pics loaded up already, which is awesome. There's over 1 million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and it's available in over 30 countries, recommended by The Today Show, Forbes, New York Mag, and more. So you definitely know they're going to love this gift. And as a special limited time offer for our listeners, you can get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/society. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/society. You get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/society. So then on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, Brad was indicted by a grand jury on the following charges: murder, which is a first-degree felony; tampering with evidence with the intent to impair a human corpse, which is a second-degree felony; tampering/fabricating physical evidence with the intent to impair, which is a third-degree felony; prohibited weapons, third-degree felony.
So just today, like literally while we've been recording, there's been some more information come out about the indictment and the information in it. And they've said that Suzanne's DNA was found on a motorized saw. This is from KENS 5, and it says, Brad allegedly tried to conceal a reciprocating saw, which are tools that are typically small, handheld, and machine-powered, as a way to impair its availability as evidence. So he obviously used... I don't want to say obviously, allegedly used this saw in, I guess, the dismemberment of Suzanne or the murder of Suzanne, and then he basically tried to hide the saw. It says he did that on October 8, one day before he was arrested. Law enforcement have not expanded publicly on how he tried to hide the tool or what evidence may have been found on the tool. So we just know that her DNA was found on it.
So horrible.
Yeah.
So Brad's brother has also been talking, like we said. He made this post on social media following the indictment. It says, our family is deeply troubled and heartbroken by the events surrounding the grand jury indictment of Brad for the tragic death of his wife. The details outlined in the case are disturbing and painful for all involved. We want to express our profound gratitude to the law enforcement agencies for their tireless work and dedication to seeking justice. Their commitment to uncovering the truth is something we hold in the highest regard. We have faith in our criminal justice system and believe that the grand jury has done their sworn duty to review the evidence and determine that it's sufficient to move forward to trial. We urge Brad to do the right thing by fully cooperating with the authorities for the sake of his children and the family who loves him. We ask him to accept responsibility and place himself at the mercy of the court. It is our sincere hope that through accountability, healing can begin for everyone affected by this devastating loss. We ask for privacy as we navigate this difficult time and thank the community for their understanding and support.
Yeah. So the brother, it's which I know this is obviously not a funny case, but the brother's name is Barton Simpson, so Bart Simpson. But he has made a ton of posts. Like he has been very vocal basically from, very early on that they do not support Brad and they encourage him to come forward and basically confess and say where Suzanne is.
Yeah, good for them. So Brad's case will be overseen by the 226th District Court Judge Velia Meza. A court coordinator for the judge told KSAT it's unlikely that the examining trial, initially scheduled for December 9th, will take place. The trial was intended to force prosecutors to present evidence. An initial court appearance in the 226th District Court will soon be set.
So it sounds like that is separate to his bail hearing, which is meant to bond hearing, which is meant to happen in about
the 19th.
Yeah, nearly 2 weeks or something like that. So sounds like that might be separate.
So apparently it's come out in the recent weeks also that Suzanne apparently told her personal banker that if she went missing to look for her in a lake.
I feel like that's kind of weird. I don't know if this is just someone trying to insert themselves into the case, but would she, I don't know, maybe she was close with the banker, but I don't know. It just seems like a weird statement to say. And everyone I've tried to find sources that elaborate on that, like the type of discussion they were having. Was she worried that Brad would do something to her? I don't know. It just seems kind of like a weird statement to make, and I haven't been able to find any other context to it.
Yeah, you never know. It could have just been like an offhanded comment relevant to something that they were talking about. Like there's definitely been times where I'm like, if you found me dead on a hiking trail, you know I was murdered and put there because I'm not on a hiking trail. Whereas if I was murdered or something, people would be like, she said.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see what happens. I think it was pretty obvious that Brad had something to do with this from the start. Seems like an all-around trash garbage person. Again, divorce is an option.
I feel like Brad seems to have some anger issues. I don't know what they were fighting about. Maybe they were having money troubles. I don't know. But I just feel like this to me seems like it was a crime that he didn't plan super well, hence him going to buy the supplies probably after she was dead. It's not something like Barry Morphew. I've brought him up a lot today, but I feel like he absolutely planned the murder against Suzanne if he did it. Allegedly, if he did it, because he had the tranquilizer guns and all that type of stuff. Whereas I feel like Brad killed her.
I feel like he didn't plan that at all, maybe.
No.
Yeah.
I feel like he killed her in a rage and then had to kind of backtrack and figure out the way to cover it up. I do always find it unbelievable that they can't find these people. But for example, they haven't found Anna Walsh, who we've spoken about. They haven't found Heidi Plank, another one who they think may have been taken to a landfill. I feel like sometimes once it gets to that point, it's so hard to find what remains of a body. And maybe that's the case in Suzanne's case too.
Jennifer Doulos too seemed kind of similar.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like sometimes these guys just get lucky in terms of them not being able to find the body, but thankfully they leave behind enough evidence and, for them to either go to trial or be convicted.
Yeah, they leave a pretty solid trail at least, since they aren't really the smartest, it seems, at doing this.
Absolutely.
It's interesting though, because there's not much background on them or like a motive. It's really nothing known. I haven't seen anyone be like, oh, besides the call from earlier, like no police to the house, no.
It doesn't
other
seem like there was
that we really know of
a history of documented domestic violence in terms of police being called to the house, documented instances of abuse. Like, I have no doubt he was probably abusive to her behind closed doors, but it didn't seem to escalate to the point where anyone else had to get involved.
I don't know how to segue now.
I do agree with what you've said, that he must really be a horrible, terrible person for his children to already have spoken out against him when he hasn't been to trial yet. Like, as we mentioned, a lot of cases the kids stick with the surviving parent because essentially they will have no one else, and I understand the kind of psychology behind that. So for these kids who are still young, like early 20s, to be like, absolutely no way, we are behind, we want nothing to do with him, indicates that they believe he did it, and that I feel like absolutely it seems like there's a very strong case for him to have murdered Suzanne.
I wonder if she was planning on leaving him or anything.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's usually, as they say, it's the most dangerous time to get out of a domestic abusive relationship is when you try to leave.
Absolutely. The second case we are going to discuss is also a Texas case, and it actually just worked out this way, that they both literally happened pretty much at the same day. One was October 6th and the other one was October 7th.
call the episode It's Always the Husband in Texas.
Yeah, so Suzanne went missing on October 6th. This case happened the next day, October 7th. And it's the case we're going to discuss is about the murder of pregnant woman Christa Gilley. She was 38 and she's allegedly been murdered by her husband, Lee.
38-year-old Lee Mongerson Gilley behind bars, accused of killing his wife in their home in the Quaint Heights neighborhood.
Mr. Gilley, you have been charged with the felony offense of capital murder on the basis of homicide of multiple victims. That's a capital felony.
It is alleged that the defendant took the life of his pregnant wife. They also have some young children in the home.
According to police, Gilley called 911 claiming his wife, Christa Gilley, committed suicide, but her injuries contradicted his story. Hospital physicians and the medical examiner saying her injuries were consistent with strangulation. Court documents state Lee Gilley intentionally caused his wife's death by applying pressure to Christa Gilley's neck and upper back. They also say he intentionally caused the death of an unborn child by applying pressure to his wife's neck and upper back while Christa Gilley was pregnant with their unborn child. Records show she was 9 weeks pregnant. During probable cause court on Saturday, Lee Gilley asked for bond twice, but was denied.
I'd like a bond today.
I understand that. I'm not setting a bond today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Neighbor Christine Anderson says she's lived across from the Gilleys' home for 4 years, and she's never heard any disturbances coming from across the street.
I'm just in complete shock. She was just a great neighbor.
To hear that she had, she also was pregnant, I could just start crying. I've been thinking about her all morning, and I just feel bad.
So as some background, we have a little bit more background into Christa because her body has been found. So since then there's been kind of memorials and tributes. So we know a little bit more about her. But she was born Christa Bauer on February 7th, 1986. She was the oldest of 4 daughters and her sisters are Samantha, Laura and Sarah. Her family have said that she was a born nurturer and that she had a magnetic personality that drew everyone in. She attended Clemson University. She graduated with a degree in public health and went on to earn a doctorate in physical therapy from the University of Pittsburgh. So she's very, very highly educated. She became a board-certified clinical specialist in cardiovascular and pulmonary physical therapy, and she's worked for several years as a traveling physical therapist. According to her obituary, Christa had an innate ability to heal and a God-given talent for sharing her love. Her family have said that she found her dream job at Memorial Hermann Hospital in the Texas Medical Center and that she loved caring for critically ill patients with heart and lung complications and that her colleagues were her work family. They've said that she was a fierce patient advocate and she developed and implemented protocols to improve the mobility of patients. She later became an adjunct instructor of physical therapy at the University of Texas Medical Branch and at Pitt. She used her mentoring skills to nurture and train the next generation of PTs. So she seemed very passionate about her job. She'd been working to get where she was for many, many years, very highly educated, seemed to really love her work and her colleagues and her patients.
And that's relevant to the rest of the story.
Yes. So Christa married Lee Gilley on January 28th, 2017. Lee worked as a software developer. Online, he's listed as the founder of a software consulting company called Docmo. I have seen some other posts that indicate there was about 10 employees or he had a team of 10. So I don't know, seems fairly successful. The couple met around 10 years before they got married. There's a post on Charleston Weddings magazine that said after going on one date and then going their separate ways, the two reconnected 8 years later in Boston for their second date. Talk about meant to be. Lee flew from San Diego to Houston 11 months later where he surprised Christa with a proposal. So the couple settled in Houston and they had 2 children together, Madeline in 2020 and Gannon in 2022. So her family have said that Christa really excelled and loved motherhood and it was her most cherished role. They said that she would when she went to Sicily, she carried around a box of sprinkles to bring home because they were her daughter's favorite. She used to plan birthday parties in advance and she enrolled her kids in lots of sports. It says that she also found time to encourage other mothers in her life and lifting them up during the hardest points of parenting. So at the time of her murder, Christa was pregnant with her 3rd child. She was due to give birth in May 2025. A source who has known Lee since childhood told the media over the last few years that Lee had become fixated with politics and the idea that women should stay at home to take care of their families, even though, as we mentioned, Christa was very successful in her professional life. On LinkedIn, shortly before the murders. Lee repeatedly liked posts about women staying home and having, quote, traditional roles instead of developing their careers. Just days before. It kind of reminds me of, I think his name was Matthew Coleman, the man who murdered his children. He just kind of went off like that too. Just days before Christa's death, Lee liked a post that read, and this is a quote, "I no longer trust women in work environments. Men are easy for me to screen because I'm one of them. Women, not as easy, especially given how in modern times they put their happiness before anything first, and it's not really obvious at first. They are
God forbid.
Yeah, they are downright dangerous to your business and your family." I can't believe people are actually putting stuff like this on LinkedIn. I guess I'm on LinkedIn. I never use it, but it's wild.
It's so gross. I see it all the time. I don't know. I'm sure it's not just a USA thing, obviously, but I think with like the current state of the world and the political climate, just shitty people like this feel more empowered than ever and more confident to say this shit out loud, which is really depressing.
I agree. So a week before Christa's death, he liked a post that had some of the phrases, "Women, forget your stupid career. We could care less about your career. Society lied. Reject being modern and embrace tradition."
But it's like, oh, you think that until like a woman surgeon saves your life.
Yeah, exactly. Or even like women teach your children. Like it's so ridiculous it's a whole other
I hope one
topic.
day these people are dying and the woman in the hospital is like, oh, I just have to immediately forget my stupid little career right now.
I hope that Lee has a woman prison warden right now.
Mm-hmm. And the jury is all women.
Yeah. So on Monday, October 7th, 2024, Lee called 911 at 11:30 p.m. and he said that Christa had intentionally overdosed. He told the 911 operator that he was performing CPR on her. Emergency services arrived and Christa was taken to hospital where she was pronounced dead. So Lee initially told police that he and Christa had argued about the purchase of a new car before he went to bed. He said he woke up 3 hours later and found her unresponsive. Lee also made statements to investigators on the night that Christa died, including saying things, quote, "Bad things happen to good people," and he also said that he thought he was being set up. So following an investigation, doctors surprisingly determined that the injuries on Christa's body were not consistent with a drug overdose suicide attempt, which, like, what a ridiculous story. Did he just sounds so arrogant and cocky that he didn't even think there would be an investigation and that they would just go with his overdose story and be done with it.
It definitely just goes with his like massive ego simply for being a man, because apparently from what I've seen, she had like pretty horrible, obvious injuries. Yeah. And he's just going to be like, oop, she just happened to overdose. So weird.
So Christa's autopsy determined that she died due to compression of the neck and her injuries were consistent with strangulation. So very, very obviously not an overdose. Mm-hmm. Lee did admit to police that Christa was not suicidal and that she also did not use drugs. So on October 11th, 2024, Lee was arrested and charged in relation to the murder of Christa and the unborn baby. This statement is from the Houston Police Department. It says, charges have been filed against the suspect arrested in the death of a woman. The suspect, Lee Gilley, is charged with capital murder, and they put his mugshot in. It says he's accused in the killing of his wife, Christa Gilley. It says officers were dispatched to a report of a suicide at a residence and were told a family member who's the suspect, as in Lee, found Christa unresponsive in the home. Paramedics transported the woman to a hospital where she was pronounced deceased. Hospital staff indicated Christa had bruising and apparent trauma to her face. The medical examiner ruled Christa's death as a homicide and the cause due to compression of the neck. The autopsy revealed that Christa was around 8 weeks pregnant. It says that they arrested Lee. He was taken into custody without incident and booked into the Harris County Jail. So there's his mugshot. He looks
exactly what you'd expect, honestly. A douche.
Smug, like a smug douche. So on Thursday, October 17th this year, Lee appeared in court. Prosecutors requested a $3 million bond. However, his defense attorney asked for a $200,000 bond. After the judge heard details of the case, he set a $1 million bond and Lee posted that bond. So he's out basically at the moment. Christa's family released the following statement at the time. They said, Christa's family remains focused on remembering Christa as a kind, welcoming, and selfless mother, friend, and daughter. We are deeply disappointed that the defendant made bond just a week after Christa's death, but we are focused on the safety and well-being of Christa's children. Christa's family and loved ones want what is best for her children and support law enforcement's efforts to bring justice for Christa and her unborn child. So Lee's attorney said at the bond hearing that Lee was devastated over the loss of his wife and that they're working hard to get to the bottom of what happened. The attorney said, Mr. Gilley is devastated. We're working very hard to get to the bottom of what's happened. There's more that's unknown than what's known right now. So ridiculous. The Harris County Assistant Attorney Lindsay Bondurant said they are pleased with the judge's $1 million bond and bond condition. One of the bond conditions says that Lee is not allowed any contact with his two children, given the allegations that the children were home at the time that Christa was murdered.
Ugh.
They said, given the allegations that they were at the home at the time this offence occurred and their extremely young age, we thought it was best in this situation to hold off with him having any contact with these children during this case. Absolutely agree. So according to the Houston Chronicle, Lee told multiple family members that he had considered leaving with the children prior to his arrest, as in fleeing with them and going somewhere else. Lee was due to be arraigned on November 20, but the court appearance turned into a bond modification. He requested permission to leave Texas because I believe his family live, I think, in South Carolina, but the judge denied that request. His arraignment is now set for Tuesday, January 28th, 2025 at 9 a.m. at the Harris County Court in Houston. So there is a GoFundMe for Christa and Christa's family and the children. It's raised over $200,000, and basically it goes on just to talk about what a great mother she was. It says they will use the money to mitigate the burden of legal, court, and travel costs so they can focus on surrounding her children with love and stability in the years to come. I just can't even imagine those poor little kids have lost their mother and will likely lose their father. It's horrible. It says, together we'll keep her caring, beautiful spirit alive. Thank you, her friends and chosen sisters. So that is Christa's case chronologically up till now. As we mentioned, he's due back in court in January, so we'll keep you updated. There's a really interesting Reddit thread where a lot of people who knew either one or both of them have commented. One person wrote, I actually work on the same floor as him. His office is only feet away from where I sit. I talked to him only twice, a week before and the week of the murder. He said the day after it happened, Lee went into the office. He seemed off and distracted. The person wrote, you think you know a guy. A lot of people in the office are freaked out and can't stop talking about us. And then someone clarified and said he came into work the day after she died. And the person wrote back and said, yep, that Tuesday, not even 12 hours after he'd called the cops to notify them of her overdose.
I wonder, I tried to look through, but I didn't really see anything else. And then I was driving home. Did he tell his coworkers, oh, my wife died last night? Wouldn't you think he'd call out?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Did he not tell anyone?
Maybe he's just trying to. I don't know. I don't even know what he thought his reasoning could be for going into work. Not even 12 hours.
Maybe he didn't even tell anyone. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just wild, crazy.
I saw a lot of people were also saying just they knew him a long time ago and thought he was pretty normal, and were surprised to hear the news. Like you mentioned at the start, it does seem like he was maybe radicalized a little bit, was following some potentially alt-right anti-female things, and I guess got a new ideology that women aren't people. But yeah, a lot of people said that knew him in college and stuff were yeah, he just seemed like a totally normal guy. And a lot of people on there who knew her, because it was in the Houston, Texas subreddit, all said that she was the nicest person, of course, that she was an amazing caregiver, was super sweet, just a genuinely kind person.
Yeah, when I read all the comments, not one, everyone seemed shocked. I would never have expected this. They used to come into my cafe and get coffee. And again, another case where there doesn't seem to have been any documented prior instances of violence or abuse. Obviously, we don't know what went on behind the closed doors, but they seemed, up until a point, a very loving couple. They were having a third child. It just seems like something maybe changed in him, and he snapped, essentially. Maybe he didn't want the third baby. Maybe, I don't know, maybe she didn't want the third baby. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of reasons why it could have happened.
I wonder if he was jealous, because sometimes, not jealous really, but was mad that she was possibly maybe I don't know exactly what he did or how successful he was, but maybe she was kind of more successful than him. And some men just like can't deal with that.
Well, she was a professor. Like she was, it sounds like she was very highly
and a
thought
physical
of
therapist,
in her
right?
industry. Yeah, absolutely. So like, I'm not, which I don't even know why I'm defending him. He sounds like he was relatively successful as well, a software developer with maybe a fairly large team of 10. That's a fairly large business to have as, a small business. So I just, I would.
It still seems like she'd be considered more successful. But again, I don't know much about his business, but it's like the Ryan in the last episode we did, he had like all these fake endeavors and projects going on where they were all shams. So, I mean, you don't really know.
I did find one interesting stat from the Bureau of Justice, and it says the percentage of females murdered by an intimate partner was 5 times higher than for males. In 2021, there was 4,970 female victims, and 34% of those were killed by an intimate partner. Very dangerous.
It also just goes to show, like, with him specifically, why any extremist media is dangerous, because this is what can happen. Like, you just start getting followers who then believe that this is right and that's okay to say these things out loud and even clearly like try to make it happen. Like, he probably didn't want his wife to be working and to be more successful than him and wanted her to stay at home, but she worked really hard for her career. Just look out for people make sure they're not getting brainwashed.
In this case, it seems like the attorney might be going to go along the lines of, it wasn't Lee. Like, there's a lot we need to get to the bottom of. There's a lot of unknowns. So we really have no idea about the motive. Obviously, we're just speculating based on his social media and what we know.
It's a crazy thing to say, because like, even if it's like, we got to get to the bottom of this, he still beat the shit out of her and strangled her to death. What do you mean we got to get to the bottom of this?
So I wonder what defense they're planning. It does sound like they might be setting it up to indicate someone else. I don't know. Obviously, we might know more in January. Yeah.
In my opinion, would be to go with that he was brainwashed by extremist media and maybe like a insanity type thing, or take like some type of deal. But he's probably too smug to say that.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully the court appearance in the end of January does happen, because I am interested to know more in this case.
Yeah, me too. So that is really it for these two stories. We will keep an eye out for any updates, because there most likely will be some updates. So make sure you're following us on Instagram. We'll post any updates on there at True Crime Society. And all of this will be on our blog, as always, at truecrimesocietyblog.com. If you want to follow our personal accounts, mine is StephSum_, Olivia's TCS Olivia, and check us out on Patreon as well. We have even more content there. We have all the episodes ad-free, and we also do weekly bonus episodes, so you'll be getting 2 episodes a week without ads, and we do earlier release of the main weekly episode as well, plus the Patreon. Like, it's a whole kind of community, so we have some chats on there, and we post different polls and things, so check us out on there. Otherwise, all the same stuff. If you can share the podcast to your Instagram stories or anywhere, share with a friend, leave us some nice comments on Spotify, and also thank you for all the Spotify Wrapped tags.
Yes.
We love to see that. That was really great. We're very grateful for all of you.
I feel like some people, like we love seeing them all shared, and people are just so kind, because they're like, check out these podcasts with you guys. Like, it's such a help when you share us on any platform. So we really, 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 really appreciate it.
Yeah, make sure on whatever platform you listen on, you're also like subscribed or following, whatever the term is for that platform. It's also a big help. So yeah, that is really it. Thank you guys for listening. Stay safe out there. Peace out. Peace out from Peep too in my life.
See ya.